Hey, good day, everybody. It's high noon in Houston, and we're just waiting for everybody to join us. I see people are coming in just at the moment. While we wait, if you could please just look at the controls, which is the bar in the middle. There is a show conversation button, third from the end. Not the red one, that will stop the conversation, but the third one from the right, if we press that, you can type at the bottom any questions during the course of the presentation. So maybe just type in where you're coming in from, please. Give people a couple of minutes to get it. Yes, we got Russ from Calgary. Finally, Russ, eh? We nearly threw you off with the dodgy invite, but no, we've managed to get you. There's Marty there from New Orleans. Hi, Marty. Okay, Chris, Western Australia. Man, nice to see you there. Baton Rouge. We've got Fu from Vietnam. We've got Sergio from Texas. And Chris is saying, yep, he's here. That's great. And all our friends from Canada, from Alberta, are coming in now, so that's great. Cold Lake, Geismar, there's Vic from Geismar. Yeah, great, Vic. DC, Mark Holden's joined. Okay, great, Mark. Nice to see you there. Just give everybody a couple of minutes to get organized. Lafayette, Louisiana. Awesome. It's great. So I think we'll get started if that's okay with everybody. That's giving everybody a couple of minutes to get settled in, and if people join us, you may notice we are taping this. You know, we are recording this for future reference and for training as well. So we can play it again, obviously, which is good. So yeah, just to note that we are recording this, guys, today. I've muted everybody, and what the idea is, we'd like it to be interactive as much as we can. So if you have got any questions, there's a couple of things you can do. One is you can type away, and I'll try and keep out. And Wings at home, she's looking out for the questions as well, and she'll notify us. But there is a new function on here, which I've just seen, which is raise your hand. So maybe you could just try to use that function, somebody, and just see if it works. Raise your hand, which is the 1, 2, 3. That's it. So Andy McDonald, thank you, Andy. It does work. So yeah, Ricky's there as well. Great. So yeah, there's one or two ways that we can interact here, which is great. But yeah, let's just get started. Like I say, thank you so much, guys, for your continuous support on LinkedIn. It really means a lot to us. And this really comes out of a place where we didn't think we were here. We didn't think we were going to be here today doing this, you know, but the situation, the world has changed very, very rapidly. And, you know, we're big believers in the future belongs to people that can pivot, take the challenges on the chin, work out what to do, and then push forward again. So it's great that we're talking to a like-minded group of people. We haven't got all the answers for sure, but collectively, I think we can all get together and really make a difference in the new, as I call it, the new era. So yeah. What we'll try and do is we'll go through to the next slide now. So here's the contents for today. We've got a slide on housekeeping. We've done a little bit of that already, which is how to interact with us. We've got a very kind of distinguished panel, I would say, today, myself excluded. But I'll introduce you to the panel, and by all means, at any one point in time, we can ask some questions and we can get some discussions going. We're going to go through the purpose, you know, why we're here, the definition of this thing we're calling commissioning on demand. And then we're going to take a step back and look at the way things were. So we're going to go back to kind of like the 80s, people that have been around for a few years like myself. We can remember the late 70s, 80s, 90s, and you know how commissioning was in those days and how it evolved over the years, and to the point where we're at today. And then only then can we, when we understand the history, the past, can we then start to redesign the future. So we're then going to spend a bit of time on the current climate that we find ourselves in, and then picking out elements that are essential, because although we're on semi-lockdown, work has got to go on, commission has got to go on. So what are the essential items of that, and how can we navigate ourselves around it for the future? There's a slide there on the future. And then, you know, sort of aimed with all that information, we're going to have a look at some actionable takeaways where people can go back to their own specific work site and think about commissioning on demand. Will it work? How can we tweak it? You know, one thing's for sure, we've got to get a process that does work for the future. And as we've said, Q&A can be during the conversation, or it can be at the end, just whatever. Or if there's no conversation, if everything's clear, that's also good as well. And then there's some next steps as well. So if that's okay with everybody, we'll press on. The housekeeping is, I've already mentioned that we are recording this. We're going to aim for something like, I don't know, 35, 40 minutes. The first one, maybe guys could just put in a 1 or a 2. If you were in the first lunch and learn on preservation, just put a 1. And if you're on this, if this is, well, yeah, and if this is, that's okay, great. So Michael, great. Yeah, I know you were interacting great before, so thank you. Yeah, Ricky was on as well. Mark wasn't, so 0 zeros. Okay, so we've got some new guys. It's great to have you on board, guys. Superb, thank you. We're going to aim for, as I say, 35, 45 minutes. The first one went on for about 1 hour 10, I think, which was great. So we'll see where we go. Usual thing, please just turn off all distractions. I've muted everybody deliberately, but only because it'd be total chaos. But if you have got a question, as I say, notify us and unmute yourself, and then we can turn your camera on and we can have a conversation. Ask questions in the comment section, Q&A at the end, and we will send the handouts out in PDF form, so no need to take ample notes, I guess, so unless you really want to. So that's the housekeeping. The panel today, right, okay, myself, Martin Canham, just for those people that don't know me. I've been around the oil patch, I guess, for a good number of years now. Started back in the late 70s and did a technical apprenticeship. Worked for a company called Rust and Gas Turbines at Lincoln, and that got me into the oil and gas industry. And then through the 80s into the 90s, spent time in Aberdeen, contracting essentially. Worked for Shell on the Shell refurbishment project of all the Brents. And then 1995, 1996, set up a company called QEDI. And then over the next sort of 16, 17 years, grew that company. And that took me to places like the Middle East, the Middle East, Africa, and the Americas, of course. So, and the former Soviet Union. And then about 3 years ago, left there and met Ricky from Rev1, who's on the call today. And we got our heads together and been with Rev1 ever since. And as you know, we're pushing it forward at Rev1. So that's kind of my background. We've also got online Nestor as well, who's in the office here as well. But Nestor's bio is, you know, Nestor is very much a results-orientated person. He's a management professional with over 20 years experience in the oil and gas industry. And he provides strategic planning solutions for upstream, midstream projects, demonstrated successful in leading, planning and controlling a diverse range of operations and maintenance and commissioning in oil and gas contracts across the United States and Latin America. He's educated with a degree from a university that I can't pronounce in Venezuela, Nestor, so yeah. And also, so he had his mechanical engineering degree from Venezuela, but also did his MBA at Rice University here in Houston. So yeah, extremely results driven, statistically very talented, I would say, and self-motivated to really enhance what we're doing here at Rev1. So you'll get to speak to Nesta shortly. And then we've got Andy McDonnell. Andy's our commissioning subject matter expert, and Andy's got over 37 years experience in process industries, working as a project manager and commissioning manager for engineering, oil and gas companies, along with EPC contractors. He participated in various onshore and offshore projects for Marathon, Shell, Amerada Hess, BP, British Gas, all the big names there. Initially as an instrument and control engineer during design, construction and commissioning, working both for the client and the contractor. It was at Marathon for over 20 years, and I know that includes a lot of project management in that, Andy. And also he's done the refining as well, so upstream, downstream. Chemical engineering degree background, specialising in process controls. So there are the panel. So we get onto the purpose. The purpose of today is to introduce this concept called commissioning on demand, and really to discuss the past, the current situation, and the future. What do we do about it? And then really to give some next steps for people that are interested in finding out more. So a definition of commissioning on demand. Quite simply, it's a pay-as-you-go system where we can tap into talent, teams, and technology. So world-class services only when you need them. It's a basic concept. We're going to look just now at the evolution of the commissioning strategy. So going back to the 80s there, it was really operator managed in our recollection, should we say. Everybody might have a different opinion, but generally it was operator managed. Even the contractors that were working for the operator had the hard hat with the company name on, and it was really the operations team. You know, the operations team did all the commissioning in the early kind of 80s. And then that went through the 80s to the 90s, where probably a lot of those operators started to retire. There was a bit of a skills gap. Some people took the money and started commissioning companies, and others went back contracting for the operator. But essentially it was a migration from the operator to an integrated team. So it was more of an integrated team throughout the 90s. And then it kind of shifted to a specialist contractor. So this is where the specialist commissioning contractors grew in competence, and they grew in scale, and were providing services to the oil companies. And that went through the early 2000s to the 2010, where for various reasons, which we can talk about, I guess everybody will have a view on this, but then there was a shift to the EPCs. So we get this new entity now called EPCC, and that seems to be the current trend, and that might, obviously go on, the strengths and weaknesses for each of these. But 2020, here we find ourselves today, where do we go in the future? So that's kind of like a timeline of where the commissioning strategies come from. I don't know, our panelists, have we got anything to kind of comment on that at all? Maybe Andy or Nesta?
Yeah, this is Andy. Yeah, I must say, for me, I started in commissioning back in the 80s, and mainly started off doing the bray platforms for Marathon out in the North Sea. And I think very much like you said, it was an operator managed team. It was in this case anyway, my experience was that it was part of the project team. We did bring in operators and maintenance techs in to assist during the commissioning, so that as we handed stuff over to them, they were very cognizant of what had been done, what was being handed over to them. But yeah, I think what you've laid out there is pretty much, because we've moved on a long way since then, although I don't think that wasn't a bad model.
Yeah. Well, you were at Marathon at the time, and they were fairly disciplined in planning and preparation.
Oh, very much so. We had
Right.
everything was planned out. Job packs were out on the mainframe. You know,
Yeah.
making sure that all the A and B sheets were being done. I think we were pretty much out front, ahead of most people at that time.
Yeah. And we were down the pecking order a little bit. And this cartoon, people might remember this one. I don't know if it's probably a little bit unkind to some of the companies, but basically what this was saying is that, okay, well, feed, detail, construction, it's all been thought about and it's all been well planned out. But for that bit there that's called CSU, where there's no time and no budget, you know, I think we need to think a little bit more about what goes into there. So, yeah. Anybody else got any comments on the history, or you know where they see this commissioning strategy coming in from? We've got a comment here from Adam. For most part, here in Alberta, we keep the operator control commissioning. Okay, Adam. Yeah. Okay. If you wanted to unmute, you could explain that a little bit more if you wanted to.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
I got it, Adam. Yeah, you're loud.
Okay, awesome. Realistically, you know, we go through some of the major companies that have been expanding, growing, and adding on, and because we would source them out with multiple EPCs, we really couldn't have an EPC give us. We'd have a handful of it, but then we'd still own it as the operator. And I kind of like the 3-to-1 ratio where I'll have 3 core operations staff for every 1 contract commissioning specialist. And then that way, my operations teams keep all that skill set in-house.
In-house, yes.
Because, I mean, everybody knows commissioning is the best way to learn a facility, right? So,
Yeah.
And I think with companies like QED, and I guess your own have sort of pulled away from Alberta, and I believe that's pretty much the big reason why, is because it's really difficult to break through with a third-party commissioning service on demand like this.
Sure. And it's mainly controlled now by the operators. Anybody else in that area, you know, Alberta area, Canada area, got any comments? Nesta's got a comment here, so Nesta, please come in. No, can't hear. No, we've got an issue with Nesta's microphone by the sound of it.
This is George. George Burgess from Alberta too.
Hey, George.
Hi. And I like to add on to what Adam's point of view is. Ultimately, the operator, the business unit, is going to run the plant. So when it goes through the EPC and C commissioning, they don't really, a lot of it is in the house of the EPCs. So that's the model, I think, a lot more than what I think is going to happen in Alberta, where I see it.
Right.
Yeah, it's just that a lot of information is in the EPC, and it's not transferred to the business unit and the owners till very late. That's the down part of that approach also. Yeah,
it's the idea of the kind of one-stop shop area. All that information is all in one place, and
yeah, it's all with the EPCs, and you know, it gets late when it comes to the owner. So that's why that effort of putting more people from the owner's side in there. Yeah.
Right. Got it. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, just moving on from that evolution then, there generally is change after a crisis. We're faced with a crisis just now, but if we look back in time, you know, we've had some crisis in the world. There was the 9/11. Well, even going before onto that, it's in '86 there was the Piper Alpha accident in the North Sea, and you know, a lot of people lost their lives. 163, I think, lost their life. After which, disruption came in, change came in, and a lot of good change came in, which kept the industry safe for many years after. So it's generally there is an incident and then some shifting and then some improvement. 9/11. I mean, the travel industry was never ever the same again after 9/11. We can't just turn up to the airport, jump on a plane. Also here in this neck of the world with the Gulf of Mexico, the Deepwater Horizon problem, and all that happened after that. And then we get COVID-19. So here's a really worldwide problem that has got many, many implications that we're only just beginning to find out. Some are good and some will be bad. Discussion point, really, yeah. So the current business environment, if anybody's got any questions. Oh, thank you, Chris. 167 lost. Yeah. And the Piper Alpha incident, 167 people perished on that day. Yeah. Just have a look at some questions here, which is all good stuff. Yeah. So Darren's saying here, low oil price environments, they only tends to have their own commissioning team, their smaller brownfield projects. Very true. Yeah. Good. Okay. Thank you for those comments. So yeah, this is a snapshot of where we find ourselves if we look outside the window here. Really, we've just gone through COVID, or we're just getting through COVID-19. There was a whole series of like a snowball effect that happened over the last 8 weeks. I would say the Saudi-Russia oil price war. Production surplus, no demand. Everybody's stuck in their houses, and nobody's using anything. Nobody's flying anywhere or traveling anywhere. We're all petrified. And no storage, So that obviously resulted in a reduction in oil price, which then had a knock-on effect. The graph that you will not probably be able to decipher on the right-hand side, but it's the oil companies. You can see that there's a blue line, a dark blue, and a light blue. That was before, and the light blue is after. So you can see that CapEx has now been cut to the tune of at least 20-25%. So $60 billion of CapEx that we were all planning to touch at some point prior to this has all just disappeared, gone up in smoke. So what do we do about that? There's projects on hold or cancelled. People have lost their jobs. There's quite a few companies that are, kind of filing Chapter 11. And once those companies have gone, what happens to the know-how? So we don't want to paint a too dim a picture, but this is kind of reality. So all that equals a loss of confidence in the marketplace, really. Hopefully it's temporary, we know that. So, and then zooming in a little bit further to say, okay, well, on that kind of macro backdrop, we've got a micro backdrop as well, which is how do we physically operate in this new environment? So there's social distancing. What impact does that have on, companies that have got large number of people in buildings? We've talked a little bit about in the past the gig economy, where we do a job for a certain amount of time and then disappear, and that can be probably done at home or remotely. Is it time now to bring that into effect? Travel, jumping on a plane for an FAT, all these things still need to be done, but there's probably going to be a reluctance from the corporate restriction policy, travel policy side, and also the personal appetite to travel. It's going to take a while to get back. All these are kind of setting the backdrop of the need for change, I guess. Lean and agile workforce, the days of large corporate entities and departments waiting for work to come in. Can we really afford to keep all that going? Probably not. Probably they've been furloughed and probably already gone, some of them. Productivity, there's a big push now. And all this came from when we talk to our clients and our projects that are ongoing, that, there's a genuine desire now to say, we need to do more for less. We've talked about it for a long time, but more for less, and we've got to be more competitive, and we've got to provide more value, essentially. The time is now. Technology's day has come now, so we need to use more technology. And if we do that, we are going to find a way to be still successful, competitive, and sustainable. And if we don't do that, I think we'll see that companies will, unfortunately, fall by the wayside. Anybody got any comments? Anybody got any questions or comments on that kind of backdrop before we move on? Gary Beach is saying hi, Gary. Great to see you. Productivity.
You guys hear me there?
Sorry?
Can you hear me there, Martin?
I certainly can. Yeah.
Yeah. So during this COVID-19 thing, at least around here, what we're seeing is productivity is dropping on the projects due to the, if you want to call it, the social distancing. So they're not making the teams as large. They're taking a lot longer to do the work. So this is just only in the construction end, but it will also carry through into the commissioning end. Commissioning teams will most likely be smaller, taking more time to do things. Here today we had one individual that was coughing and a little phlegmy, so off he goes. And now everybody's fretting about, oh my God, does he have COVID? Is it going to spread to us? So it is a real interference in the productivity, I'm finding.
Sure. Good point. And as Russ is saying here, there's pluses as well. And I think just on that, I don't know about what you people think, but certainly productivity is shot through the roof. We sit down at 7 o'clock in the morning at home on the computer, and you literally got to prize yourself out at 7 o'clock at night to go and finish. The line between work and home is now totally blurred. So, that's had an effect on productivity for sure, positive in a lot of ways. But is that what you meant, Russ, or would you like to come in there and just comment?
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Sure can.
Okay. There's actually a few pluses that I found that are going to work out good for like companies like Rev1. There's some things that I'm doing with Fluor, because Fluor isn't really used to doing this stuff. But for example, Gerald Vixie, who's also on here with me, we're operating sort of as a boutique type commissioning organization for Fluor. There's a project in Peru that's having some trouble. And so instead of flying a bunch of guys over there full time to Peru, which we can't right now because of COVID, we're actually doing that. We're setting up in Calgary as a boutique resource where we'll take all the P&IDs, we'll scope it, we'll set them all up, do everything, but actually do the pre-com and com forum from here with experts. So it's much cheaper that way. And before it would have been really hard to do, but it seems like this COVID thing has actually opened up a whole different scheme of doing telework.
Yes. It was always like, oh, well, we can do it, but it's like second on the list. Now it's first, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different things that are coming out of the COVID thing. The other thing I noticed too, and Gary Beach would know this, is that although we're not getting the $2, $3, $4, $5 billion projects, the number of projects that are, or work that's coming up that's say 750 million and under, the smaller projects, there's a whole bunch of stuff that ordinarily Fluor, like as a big company, they would just not really bother with.
Got it.
But if we're working as a boutique type thing or like Rev1 or whatever, we can do these projects very cheaply, very efficiently, and there's a lot of them. So it's not all doom and gloom, like depending, sure. You might have to go a different direction, but it's not that bad.
Sure, I get it, Bruce. Thanks for that comment. That's great. Maurizio, you've put a good comment on there. Would you like to come in and just explain that one?
Sure. Before I worked in several projects, and usually, when there's an official model review, you go there, you sit in the group, you discuss things, and it's easier. And now it was the first time I had to do this via WebEx, and before I said, oh, how will this work? You have your P&IDs, you look on the 3D model, it's more complicated, you look on your screens. But after the second and third model review, you get really used to it. But if you asked me 1 year ago, or 1 year before, I would say, hey, no, don't do that.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly we adapt. we find a way, and that's all part of what we're talking about here with commission on demand. Thank you, Maurizio. Yeah. Do you want to come in there, Ricky? Explain about reliance on technology?
Sure. Yeah, I was just commenting. I think necessity is the mother of all invention. So as things are, people are forced to adapt to certain situations, they rely more on technology. And thankfully, this day and age, it happened, COVID-19 happened in the 2020s or 2019, era, where technology is much more prevalent as opposed to early 2000s or 90s, where it would have been catastrophically detrimental to the world. So just was making that point.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, and that's really echoed by Michael again there. He's saying that I would say COVID has enabled technology and pushed it to the forefront, which is very, very true. Yeah, thank goodness we are where we are. George, Russ, agreed and hoping owner organisations will somehow work collaborative with EPCs. And do you want to come in, George, and just explain that a little bit, please?
What I was trying to say is, we have those different functional groups like, project controls, quality, commissioning, all of those linked together to what are we finally delivering. So, owner organizations tend to say either we give it to one EPC and not bring in the other expertise, which is that boutique thing that Russ was speaking about, the new approach. So that's what I was just trying to put on that. That's somehow a different way. Like we, instead of having we have specialized vendors. Like for example, I'm doing a slurry pump, which I'm installing, and I've got to commission it. I'll bring those parties early on as a boutique, come in, kind of support. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, no, get it totally.
Thanks.
Thank you for that, guys. Thank you. Okay, so that's kind of the backdrop. That's the history, where we are today, and what do we do about it? Okay, well, we've thought about this, and we've kind of pivoted what we think is a potential model forward. So this is what we call commission on demand, which is basically in the core a shared vision that yes, we've got to be very cognizant of the fact that this is cost minimization, risk mitigation, and value maximization. So at the core of this whole subject are those three real, what should we say, objectives. So on cost efficiency, it's basically no more costly overheads or burdens, no more costly office space, only pay for the hours that you use. That's how we think we can affect the costs. On the risk mitigation, we think there's something like a risk and reward model. Of course, for clients, and the clients could be the operator, or it could be the EPC contractors, or anybody that's a duty holder, I guess. There's no more employer liability because people like this boutique organization would hold the employee liability and the commissioning liability. And through that, there's various contracting options which we can discuss. Through maximization value, it's really using the same people, of course, but they'll be in a different area. Qualified and experienced personnel, time trusted, of course. And as we mentioned before, the time is now for technology. So just looking into that in a little bit more detail, this is the three sides of the triangle on cost efficiency. What we mean by no costly overheads or burdens, no direct staff, essentially. The staff would be in the boutique organization, and that has a benefit of no benefits. You'd be paying no matched 401k, medical insurances, PTO. The boutique would take care of all that. And also things like, I remember being departmental head and having to pay for these shared services, which is always a bone of contention. So there'll be no more of that. Travel expenditure and IT, it all kind of goes away, and it's all built into the new model. Of course, real estate, no more costly office space. If we can work from remotely, home or smaller offices, and mobilize from there, we're going to be a cost saving. Rent, refectories, cafes, tax, furniture, computers, all those kind of things. And simply you only would pay for an agreed work scope to an agreed performance standard for the hours on a CTR, essentially. Cost efficiency. On the value maximization, we talked about the qualified and experienced personnel. Goes without saying. So this new model, you know, obviously it won't affect safety and environmental issues. Those are mandatory and they won't be affected. But this is looking at the other elements that we can do something with. So qualified and experienced personnel who are historically, we go to feed straight away. So we start early in the process. They've got high productivity, zero or minimum rework, I would say, with people that have been around for a long, long time, and we use industry best practices. Time trusted resources that have strong leadership and supervision, results orientated, proper planning of the CSU activities. If we can plan it properly and manpower histograms, produce the manpower histograms, we can produce the CTRs, and companies will only pay for the time that is needed. It promotes high performing teams, and it helps with the management of all the interfaces. And the third one there is the technology, real-time reporting. Technology day has come, and it's time to roll out these flexible, modern workflows. Just one more slide, I think, and then we can open it up. So risk management, something like a shared risk and reward model against defined success criteria. So, you know, on a project, direct costs and overheads would be covered, but then the profit element would put up for risk. And obviously there's a downside and a potential upside if we achieve the defined success criteria. And then the employment and contracted liabilities would all rest with the boutique organization. And the various contracting strategies could be, just listing them out there, it could be operator from the bottom to the top. It could be operator self-perform, CSU contractor, the EPCC with bringing in a specialist contractor, or the EPCC self-perform. There's probably a few more variations as well, but yeah, just quick sanity check at the moment. Any questions, comments, or sort of dialogue around these three areas? So we've got risk management, mitigation, I would say, value maximization, cost efficiency, all around that model there. So George is yeah, okay, so that's fine. And so in the actual crisis, travel restrictions, okay. I don't know if any of our panelists, Nestor, I don't know if you want to come in here, Nestor, at all, and if your microphone's not working properly, or Andy, anything to sort of comment on all of those? Yeah, Andy, please come in. Can you unmute, Andy?
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so like with the projects we're doing with Rev1 at the moment, with all the social distancing, working from home, I think it's working as a really good model, because now with the technology of using the Teams and all the information being able to be put into cloud repositories like Box, we're actually managing to get to the information and get things working very, very well without distractions of other people in the office. That can be very, very concentrated on what you need to do, and it's quite easy. Then you just get up in the morning, you switch the computer on, and you just go.
Yeah, good productivity.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other way to do that is to pack your bag, jump on a plane, go to site, and all those costs. And really, you're getting total distraction at site, and you can't really concentrate. So yeah, it's really worked out well for us. Anybody? Yeah, Russ is saying he 100% agree with Andrew. What would you say there, Russ? Oh yeah, he's agreeing with Andrew. That's exactly it. Yeah, thank you. Anything from you, Nestor? Nestor's just walked in the room. We are 6 foot apart. We've got a calibrated tape measure here. Anything? No, it's all good. Yeah. So Gary's come in here. We've seen in the past these models in place working well. The issue seems to be keep the EPCs and clients to follow. Do you want to come in, Gary, and just explain that, please? That'd be great.
Yeah, you know, we've seen in some of these big projects where we have followed these models. We've taken the time to set up a good CSU core group early on in the project during FEED, participating in the design reviews, the HAZOPs, model reviews, and then progressing into developing the commissioning and operating procedures. So we've proven over and over again, and Russ, I know you've been there with us and seen this, Martin also yourself, and so it seems to work good on a project, and then a client or the EPCs, you get new teams come in and they don't seem to see the value in it, and one of the big targets for cost saving, like I said in my message there, seems to be the CSU is a common target on that. Why, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's something that's not quite so tangible. And when you do have the good, successful team in place, and you pull off a really good commissioning and startup, and you know, everybody's all happy about it, what they don't realize is that if it wasn't successful, how much time and schedule and costs it would end up costing them. So it's really hard to quantify the savings that they're actually getting, because they never see the losses during a really good, successful commissioning and startup. So that's kind of what I'm getting at, and you know, we end up being the guys saying, or we can cut the CSU group, we don't need you guys until the very, very end, and then by then it's too late a lot of the times to save.
That's where the cartoon came in. Yeah, exactly. Going back to the cartoon. Yeah, it seems to be a common theme, but yeah. Okay.
You know, where the miracle happens kind of thing.
Where the miracle happens, that's what it used to say on there. That's right, yeah. Good. Andy's coming in again. What's that, Andy? He agrees with Gary.
Yeah, I was just saying, because the commissioning and startup is right at the end of the project, it's, you know, we're always seen to be tail end Charlies, and if the project's already over budget, then you know they've got to find out where they're going to cut their money, and we're the only thing that's left.
Yeah, everybody else has run. Yeah, okay, yeah. And Bruce, you agree with that as well? Yeah, that's a good one. So good. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to come in, Bruce. Invisible 20. That's very good. Yeah, please come in if you can. But Bruce is saying there, because completion is the invisible 25% of the project. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, cool. So just moving on.
Sorry, Marty, just to jump in, it's Adam again.
Hi, Adam. Yeah.
Just kind of a quick question, if you, for the panel and naturally anybody involved,
sure.
Are you seeing any real opportunity for developing these commissioning systems for companies that want to keep this in-house, where we come in and, because a little bit of quick background, I'm consulting with an EPC who does want to become an EPCC, and so they're sort of asking, okay, well, how do we best do this? Have you guys at Rev1 or anybody else in the group had many people come and look in to say, look, I love what you do, I just don't want to keep you around forever, kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. Anybody want to comment on that, Nestor or Andy or anybody else on the meeting?
Well, I'll put in on that one. This is Gary again. Again, we've seen this in the past where we've had very effective commissioning groups. Somebody has come in to have a look at us, and then it gets to, they start looking at the cost, and it always seems to get back to that cost. Oh my God, that's a huge cost. But when you really look at what that is compared to the cost of the project, you know, you're only in a few % of the cost of the project. But it seems to me, at least, and maybe in my little mind, I'm seeing it that that's what seems to scare people away, especially for bringing you in really early in the project, and they figure you're going to be bringing a giant team in, and it's just going to cost them nothing but money, and they're not going to get anything out of it. So it's a bad impression that some of these clients have, or let's say smaller EPs that have this mindset.
Sure. You just get the processes and everything set up and the people and everything, and then it's challenged and pulled apart for costs again. But okay, so it seems to be a continuous circle. But
yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, Adam. Michael, any question from you there? You've seen that a few companies have brought in companies to do cold eyes reviews, right? Okay.
Yeah, nothing really to a question, just really adding to what Adam was asking about. I've been a part of 3 companies, or 3 clients, we'll say, oil and gas in Canada, that have brought commissioning companies in to review what they currently have and then help build on it so that they can do in-house commissioning. Usually that results in a contract with us doing some of the work, so it helps. But that we stay for a little bit, and then they continue on with their own program. So it does happen, and I think it's happening more and more now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Darren's saying, yeah, okay, so Suncor, yeah, of course, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm part of that team that Darren's talking about.
Got it. Yeah, you're part of that. Yeah. Interesting. Good. Okay, so there's an interesting question here from Bill McNeish. Does anyone have a good metrics on CSU costs versus the total install costs that they can share? Nestor, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, I think, a good industry number would be, norm would be between 2 and 4%.
Right.
So somewhere around those numbers. So that would be a good approximate cost, of the CSU effort.
Yeah.
So.
And Michael's saying between 3 and 5. I think Russ, we used to say around about the 4, wasn't it? Something like that.
That's right, depending on the complexity of the job.
Right.
But yeah, exactly. And that usually includes turnover, pre-com, and com.
Right. Yeah, good. And Gary's saying it should be above 5 in his experience. Mark Oldham's agreeing 3 and 5. So yeah, between 3 and 5 seems to be the consensus there, Bill. Hopefully that helps. Good. So then we've just listed out, okay, what the potential benefits to the client are. So with this kind of approach, where we go in as with a shared vision of minimizing costs, maximizing value, and mitigating the risks, basically end up with a series of CTRs for work scopes. You only pay for the work carried out, defined in the CTR. So you'd have a catalogue of CTRs, and it's simply as pay as you go. Of course, there's no need for the costly overheads. It's one contract, one monthly invoice. What we've done here at Rev1, we've got this thing we call the vertically integrated CSU services, which is basically, don't like the term, but the one-stop shop for commissioning. So we go in there, we plan, we prepare, we execute. We've got the processes underpinned by technology, and then we've got our own agreements with flange tightening, pre-com cleaning, catalyst loading, any subcontractors. So it's a vertical stack, and that's a unit like Legos that you could just plug into the EPC or the major project. And we feel that with that model, the emphasis is really on the sharpened pencil. So optimum costs, optimum delivery, risk and reward. And we do think that as a backdrop would create an environment for best practice, because all the best practices through that process will then get built back in until it'll be like kind of machine learning, gets better and better as time goes on. But which we'd hoped that on major projects we'd like to be able to see right now, but it seems to be every project is like, okay, well, we'll do what we did on the last project, and some's good and some's not so good. So having that baseline of best practice is really, really good to build it back in. Yeah, and then, you know, the whole underpinning concept of this is to look objectively at what we're doing, and not only to survive but to thrive. And I think if we get it right, you know, the future is very, very bright, and we can get that market share. We can be the market leaders. So yeah, any more comments? Please chip in if we're getting kind of to the last few slides, I believe, here. So any kind of comments, please let us know. Michael's come back in here. Agree with the complexity and inclusion. Yeah, definitely. Damn cheap in the total. You're right, Bill. When you consider the whole project life cycle and everything, that's all the interfaces, everything that's been costed out, with the 3 to 5%, it has a huge effect, and it's a very small amount. So yeah, agree totally. Gary's saying, similar to other phases on a project, if proper planning is not done up front, the costs are going to be higher. Yeah, absolutely right. Andy, please come in.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know a lot of people wanting to sort of like take a lot of this work into EPCs and the like, and having worked both, you know, looking at engineering and commissioning and pre-commissioning, the pre-commissioning, commissioning people are quite almost a separate discipline to the people who are doing the engineering up front. And I've worked on both. And so I think we've got to make sure that people realize that just because they've worked on the design and doing the engineering in the office, that they would be the best fit for doing commissioning. Sometimes it can be the case, don't get me wrong, but I would say more often than not, they are very, very different type of people.
Got it. Point well made. Anybody else? Model should work really well for sourcing international expertise. Yes, becoming more essential with global. Don't know if you want to come in there, Gerald, but that's a very strong point.
Yeah, I just seeing this more and more all the time with technology advancing so quickly. The expertise for commissioning some of this new technology is getting harder and harder to source. So this model should really help in finding that technology and reducing costs at the same time.
Sure. Okay, good. Thank you for that comment. Yeah. Where are you coming in from, Gerald? Where are you in the world?
I'm in Vancouver right now, but from Alberta is where I hang my hat.
Got it. Got it. Great. Thanks for being here. And then Tom, yeah. Okay, Tom, great concept, but you know, how do you manage the vendors? For instance, the FATs. What do you think, Nestor?
Yeah, that's normally, I mean, all the vendors' contracts are set with the operator. So what we had normally done in the past is we have a vendor coordinator, we interact with them, but I mean, the client is who actually manage all the contract side of
all the coordinations.
All the coordination, yeah. We oversee what they do.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Andy. I just wanted to say that, you know, yes, there is stuff like, you know, the factory acceptance tests and the like, that this, you know, you still have to go to them. You know, it's sometimes there might be some stuff you could do, but it's very hard to not go to a compressor manufacturer or a turbine manufacturer or even the DCS and not go through and spend time there, because it's a large amount of work and you really have got to be hands-on in that. A lot of the other stuff where we're looking at marking up drawings and writing procedures, yeah, we can do that very much separate and away, but there's going to be some part of our work scope that you've actually got to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is Gary here. We found in the past on some of the larger projects that to have a good operations and maintenance presence at a factory acceptance test, wherever there may be, could be worldwide, will usually end up paying off in spades, because we've found, and you know, and I hate to pound on the third-party inspectors that they're not always looking out for the best interests of the operator. And I've had comments in the past from the engineering group that they really appreciated having the operations people there, the operations and maintenance people there, because we seem to be the only guys that came prepared and that were really interested in the actual what was happening on the factory acceptance test. You know, we're really serious about it. So in my view, I think that that's a very critical thing, especially for larger complex pieces of kit. You should have that operations maintenance presence there during the factory acceptance tests.
Great, Gary, thanks. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yep, there we go, thumbs up. Sylvain saying engineering and pre-com and automation are very complementary when together. So there are benefits, of course, of having all that together as well, which is the other side of the argument, which is good. Yeah, so Darren's saying here, great model, will be interested when large projects will be post-COVID, likely smaller projects will with longer timelines, right, Darren? Yeah, yeah. But if you want to come in there, Darren, and just explain that. Just
can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. No, it's just going to be interesting to see, you know, once economies start getting back online and where the money will be invested and where, you know, where the large projects that we, you know, we're used to from the past will be done. And then, you know, of course, I think here in North America, and Russ already touched on that, you know, the smaller projects and EPCs are going after work which they didn't even look at, you know, a few months or a few years ago, certainly, of $1 million and less. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how, you know, where the projects are and the size of projects going forward.
Yeah. Good point. Absolutely. Okay, so I think we're getting to the end. We're coming up to just the hour now, which has been a quick hour. But yeah, just to recap, you know, we discussed we've discussed the topic. We know what the topic is now, commission on demand. We looked at the past, the current situation that we find ourselves in, and some ideas for the future. So, you know, actionable takeaways. It's probably time just to think about your own area. We talked about some companies there that are already setting up and got different models in place, but time to revisit your own commissioning contract and risk strategy, and really think, could this come in? Could this really work? I think we've decided, you know, it's nothing new. We've done it in the past, but the emphasis has always been on something else. You know, we've tried to set it up, and it's been, like Gary's saying, it's been taken away because of costs and whatever. Is now the time to do this properly now? We certainly at Rev1 believe it can, and you know, this we see as being the start, not the end. So we're here. I think you all know that we're progressive. We're looking at opportunities. We look slightly differently at things. So if you do go back and you think that this could be worthy of some further discussion, please don't be strangers. You know, anybody that's on here, share it out, and please let us know, and let's discuss it further and see if we can get a system that works for you, works for your client, and we're all competitive and we're all sustainable. That's the whole really message of today, I would say. Any last questions or comments or questions? Anything? Everybody want to come in and just ask any final questions? I think we're okay. I think everybody's dried up now, which is good. So we made it pretty simple in terms of process to instigate commissioning on demand. There's 6 steps. The first step is an NDA. So before we talk about anything, let's sign an NDA. Then everything's secure. You know, we can share work scope. Share a work scope document, and then we can do our magic at this end and come up with a really detailed project cost estimate, which is a level 1 schedule, a manpower histogram, and maybe an S-curve, and show you that, and you can compare that with your operation and see what, you know, how it compares. If you think there's some merit in it, some cost savings and some value in it, we can get an MSA very quickly in place. Certainly at this end, I don't know about your end, but here we can. And then we can define the success criteria. So what does acceptable look like? What does excellent look like? We can define all that. What does not acceptable look like? And come up with a series of KPIs. And then from that, we have a series, a catalog, I would say, of CTRs. And we start with the first one and start implementing it. So that is essentially the 6 steps to commissioning on demand. It's time to wash up. There they are. The pork chop has been eaten. Thanks everybody again for your time. For me, this works on 2 levels. The first level, on a personal level, it's great to speak with my colleagues from the past, which is pretty selfish, but I really enjoy that and I miss you guys. So that's really good. And then on the second level, we talk about these topics. We like to try and foster discussions, topical subjects that really affect commissioning as a company, and also with the Commissioning Professional Symposium, which is, again, we did have it planned and we postponed it, but it's now on November the 2nd, I think it is. We'll have to just, I should know it, but it's either November the 2nd or October the 2nd, is it? Yeah. Sorry, yeah, it's October the 2nd. We don't even know what date it is these days, do we? But October the 2nd, please mark it down. What we'll do is when we send the PDFs out, we'll send you a link to the website where you can go and have a look. I know a lot of you guys, we see you every year down here with CPS. So this is just another example of, you know, nurturing the tribe, as it were, and the community, and having some good interaction there. So thanks everybody for your time. If anybody's got any last comment, now's the time, or we will say thank you so much. That's been an hour, 12 minutes, and hopefully we'll see you again on the next Lunch and Learn.
Stay warm, Martin. It was snowing here today.
Is that right? My goodness.
3 inches of snow at camp.
I'm well thawed out now, so come on down, okay?
Open
Thanks to everybody for joining. Really appreciate it. Thanks to the panel. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Nestor. And thank you, everybody. Bye for now.